Now, Turkey is trying to tempt Apple, the world's most valuable company, away from the European Union. The Deputy Prime Minister, Mehmet Simsek, tweeted, "Apple should move to Turkey, happy to provide more generous tax incentives, won't have to deal with EU bureaucracy." Now, Mr. Simsek's referring to the EU's demand that Apple repay $14.5 billion in taxes to Ireland. Meanwhile, the United States has expressed anger over the EU's decision and described the tax investigation as unfair. Here's the US Treasury Secretary, Jack Lew.
Our concern with the European Commission action is that it is using a state aid theory to make tax law. It is doing it in a way that is retroactive and that overrides national tax law authority, in our view. And we think that it undermines the environment in Europe for international business because it creates uncertainty that ultimately will not be good for the European economy. As the head of the U.S. tax agency, I've been concerned that it reflects an attempt to reach into the U.S. tax base to tax income that ought to be taxed in the United States.
Well, for more on this, I'm joined by our editor-at-large, Craig Copetas, who is in Paris. Craig, we've just been hearing from Mr. Lew there. He's got his reasons why he thinks the EU is acting unfairly. What do you make of those comments?
Well, there's a global tax war going on, Matthew, and last night Turkey offered aid and comfort to the EU's chief combatant, Tim Cook, the CEO of Apple. The EU is scrambling for money, as is the United States, particularly in an election year. The key to all this thing is the EU Competition Commissioner, unelected I might add, Margaret Vestager. As you know, she's going after $14 billion in alleged unpaid back tax from Apple. Well, she's never going to get that money. What Vestager's tactics in this, and she's done this in the past, is try to slap a company with a lot of money and get a settlement before it gets to court. She doesn't like to go to court because she knows she's going to lose. But in this instance, Madam Vestager is bringing a nail clipper to a gunfight because she's got the U.S. government against her. She's got Apple's lawyers against her, the most profitable company in the world. And what she's doing is scrambling around trying to find coins underneath the sofa because the EU needs money. Right.
Nail clipper to a gunfight. Was that an allusion to the Untouchables by any chance, Craig?
Could be, but this is going to be worse, Matthew, and here's why. Because Apple is not going to move to Turkey. But what the finance minister did yesterday was shoot Turkey's first salvo in this tax war. Because the fact is, if a corporation wants to move to Turkey, to headquarter there, they're going to get much better tax rates and cooperation from the government than any of the continental socialist EU governments which control Brussels. The question's a real simple one. There is right now $2 trillion of U.S. corporate money in Europe. The EU wants some of that money, and the Americans would love to repatriate that money. So there's this fight going over for this pile of money. But this litigation is going to go on for quite a long time over who's going to get it. Certainly not the EU.
Just finally, Craig, and briefly, if you would, you mentioned a global tax war for all this US money that's sitting out there abroad. How does a country win the taxes, if you like? Is it by cutting the corporation tax, or is it through the aggressive litigation we've seen from the EU?
The companies would rather by cutting corporate tax, and in doing so, and personal tax, and allowing that money to seed entrepreneurial ventures and destabilize, decompress laws which restrict growth. It's as simple as that. The EU doesn't like to do it. It's big, 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 big.
Okay, Craig Copetas in Paris, thank you very much.